Before we get to your scheduled video, please remember that likes and comments tell YouTube to promote our work to other people, and subscribing to the channel tells you when something new drops. You can also head to the link tree in the description to peruse my books, join us on Discord, or support us on Patreon. You can get episodes of Journey of Wrestling and Violent Profiles early, as well as a load of other treats. Even just $1 a month earns you a name drop for being cool. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Greetings and salutations, fellow best bubs. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey.
This is the Two Nerd Podcast. Two Nerd. Singular. Well,
We've
suppose
joined.
we are.
We've become one.
Spoilers. Or is it?
Who
Interesting.
knows?
Yeah. This is the earliest we've done a movie podcast since the movie came out. Yeah. In a long time. I hold you entirely responsible for that.
I am. I declared that we were going to see it by a certain date, and if you didn't go, I was going to go without you.
I grumped a lot.
He did. He was a real bitch about it.
A real tiny panic attack. It was terrible. Not the movie, the experience of getting to the movie.
And then we got to the theater, and it was nice and empty, and then the movie happened.
Yes.
And in a first, for the last several movies we've gone to, there was no extreme asshole in our local theater, and there wasn't an altercation.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, there was us.
But we didn't altercate.
No, we did not. Well, I almost left.
You did.
I did. But more on that after we talk about who's cool. I forgot to bring up the document again. Do you remember any of them?
Let's find out.
Okay.
All right, we have Passion Killer 711, Rob, Distru City KTL, a guy from Ohio, DG, On the Tip of Your Tongue, Harmony.
That's it. That's 7. Oh my, what a spike. Sorry, headphone users. That might come out interesting. Yeah, thank you, each and every one of you. You are very cool. You too can become cool by subscribing at least the $1 tier on our Patreon. We have higher levels for other stuff, get kinds of content early. There's a whole Journey of Wrestling series that's available at the $1 tier. You can watch it all right now. Everybody else has to wait half a year to get all of it, but not you. Yeah, there's all kinds of good stuff on there. You can tell us what to podcast to a certain extent. So if there's a movie you want us to watch, you have that power, depending on how much dollars you want to give us. Yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine. This is a film. Let's do the quick spoiler-free review.
Okay.
Not that I intend to get on, like, really hard spoilers, but, you know.
I mean, like, this movie has a lot of spoilers in it.
Basically, everything past the first 2 or 3 scenes is a spoiler.
And even the first 2 or 3 scenes are kind of a spoiler. So, to be vague, this is a movie that if you go to comic book movies for their deep and involved and intriguing plots, why? But also, this is not the movie for you. If you go to comic book movies to have a great fucking time, this is the movie for you.
I have so many opinions about this film. To sum it up in brief without giving a spoilery version, because I have some details to get into, they roughly sound like this. I think this might have been my least favorite of the Deadpool trilogy, but it also might have been the best of the Deadpool trilogy, but it was probably also the worst of the Deadpool trilogy.
I think it was probably, my feelings aren't as complex. I think this is an incredibly fun movie, and it don't gotta be more complex than that.
That's a much better way to put it. I don't know. I feel torn in a way I don't usually. Usually, if I watch a movie that isn't very well done, and I enjoyed it, that's okay. I acknowledge that, and I accept that what they were trying to pull off, the fun of it, was executed with aplomb. Here, I feel differently for a number of reasons, which we will get into eventually. Before we do, though, we should probably do like an MCU check-in, I feel like, because we got to fill 30 minutes, first of all. And secondly, it has been a long time since we've talked about the MCU, and the last thing we talked about was fucking Echo.
Which is bad.
So where are you, my guy?
I'm going to spoil one joke from the movie because it is the best possible way to respond to that question. Welcome to the MCU. You're joining us at a bit of a low point.
Yeah. I am not. We're entering the mild spoiler territory, so like, subscribe, comment. I'm bell agnostic. Whatever you feel is best. And thank you for viewing. Subscribe to the Patreon, buy my book, join us on Discord. The people who usually talk about, oh, the MCU is dying, etc., superhero movies are dying, are classically full of shit. And I think still today they're full of shit. They're going to be making these until the end of the Blues Brothers movie.
They will make these until they stop making money on them.
And
just full stop. As long as the comic book movies still keep turning a really good profit, they'll keep fucking making them, guys. That's how capitalism works.
And most of them have turned a pretty good profit, even the bad ones. Now, maybe that's partially on momentum. You know, well, I gotta watch this. I watched the last 73. Fair enough. But we're also...
Welcome to being a comic book fan.
Yeah, we're also coming in at a shift because... this movie debuts at a shift. Because we're moving away from the miniseries design. During the strikes that happened, they sort of took a look at everything they had and went, this is all crap. Let's figure this out differently. They realized the miniseries weren't really doing things for them. I don't know how many we watched where I was like, this could have been a movie. It might have been a long movie, but it could have been a movie.
But there have been many movies that we've watched that we said, this could have been a series.
Sure. I will agree to that as well. So I say this as someone who has been, I don't know, do I want to say a stan?
Brother, you can look at the records of our podcast and how we generally review. That's all, folks. How we generally review comic book movies. Stan, I don't know if it's accurate because we're not pushy like that, but we're definitely fans.
I don't remember the lyrics, but I was going to do them, but with Squirrel Girl. I hope she sends me a starter cap. Yeah, I like comic book movies. I like comic books. I think superheroes are neat. I like superheroes for what they are. I tried to watch The Boys, and I hated it.
Instantly. I don't think... Did you get through the whole first episode?
I watched the whole first episode. And by the end of the first episode, I was having a slightly better time. But I hate all of those characters. This is not a The Boys podcast, though. You want us to talk about that? Hey, you know where the Patreon is.
If you pay us $15... you can make him watch The Boys.
Yeah, I'll watch the rest of the season. $15 for a season, I believe. It falls within the time constraints. I need to update that, but I have to do sprite work.
It would be so funny if you did
I'd hate it so much.
It would be so funny.
Y'all out there who like rage, yeah, that's how you get it. Or just to make me suffer. It doesn't cost that much in the grand scheme of things. Anyway. I am not one of those people who is, for whatever reason, hoping for the death of superhero movies or hoping for them all to turn into The Boys. Which, ironically, given the content of this film, is part of what happened. Everybody said fuck and heads flew off.
But that's not the problem with The Boys.
No. That's not the problem.
Deadpool and Wolverine is missing a key component of what makes a lot of superhero deconstructions fucking grating and awful to watch. It doesn't hate superheroes and fundamentally think they're stupid. Deadpool is an irreverent comedy. All three of the movie series have been. The comics character usually is. Most of his other properties, games and such are. It could be said, and I would say it's fair, that in a lot of cases, Deadpool himself is a parody of more serious superhero characters.
Yes, he is.
But it's made with love. And if there's something that you can take away from a lot of our podcasts, I think we've said it dozens of times, if you make a parody when you make a parody of something or satire, it has to be made with love or it's going to become poisonous.
That's a very good point. There was something I watched last year that was satire of a popular property that has fallen out of favor, and the timing of it, there was a lot of vitriol and bitterness, and that made it less fun to watch than it should have been.
It's just gonna become mean and poisonous and not a good time. If you're going to make fun of something, it should be something that you like. Because if you make fun of something that you hate, you're just going to become a bitter asshole.
Yeah, it just ends up coming across as cynical and toxic. And, like, you get that amount of the audience going, yeah, this is how I feel also. But there was something recent that did the same thing for me. I don't remember off the top of my head, and it should have been, it was a wrestling thing. Yeah, it should have been the moment where I was like, yeah, I hate that guy too. But, like, no. It's bitter. I feel bitter. I don't like feeling like this. Even if I agree with you.
Whereas in Deadpool and Wolverine, in this movie, there are a lot of fun, there are a lot of moments. It is, I would say, about 60% jabs at the MCU and Fox superhero universes by volume.
Yeah, it's absolutely. But it's done with like a...
with affection.
Yeah, we're all having a good time here. We're fans of this, so we know how this works. And bottom line, spoiler-ish version, this is, to me, such a hard movie for someone who isn't a fan. Now, you had an argument when I mentioned that as we left the theater, that everything that this movie is making fun of has become pop culture firmament for the current generation in the same way Star Wars was for us.
I would argue much more so.
Yeah, probably because of media.
And also volume.
Yeah.
There are 30-something MCU movies, a dozen series, or some shit like that. This has been pop culture since, like, Iron Man came out in 2008.
Yeah.
So basically, my whole adult life, this has been the big pop culture thing that unites people. I live in a golden age. I grew up as a nerd. I was pushed into lockers for liking shit like this. And I was just on that last train before we took over, before we won. And it's 2024 now, and superhero comics and the MCU and Fox movies specifically have been big tentpole movies for years. And a lot of the stuff this is a spoiler, a lot of the characters they bring back in this movie are characters who are from people who are in the demo, because we're no longer in the demo. The people who are in the 18 to 34 prime demo from their childhood.
Yeah.
So it's peak nostalgia.
You say there are a dozen series, and that's not counting at least twice as many of the animated series that have come out since the MCU popped off.
Now, I'm just talking MCU.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If we include animated series and various other properties and video games, comic books have ruled pop culture for an adult human's worth of time almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this might be a hard movie to get into if you knew nothing about any of this shit.
But as your argument was, it's hard not to know anything about any of this shit.
Yeah, even if you don't watch these movies, you've absorbed some of this through pop culture. I guess for people in outer Mongolia, this is probably not going to hit super well. But you know what? I don't even know that's true.
I really wish I had specific data to correct you on that, but I don't. Wolverine is huge in Mongolia.
That would not surprise me at all.
Well, no, now I will say I am a little bit more on the outside of this than you are, because I stopped watching Wolverine Hugh Jackman movies with like the third X-Men. He was in Days of Future Past, I think it was.
I think it's like a blip. He's like a cameo in that, isn't it?
There was one where he was a more principal character. The one that was actually
Days of Future Past. Yeah, he is like the main character. He was like a cameo in First Class.
Right, but I didn't see the original Deadpool and Wolverine movie where Sabretooth is his brother. I didn't see the sequel to that. I didn't see Logan, which is like critical viewing for this. One would argue.
If you haven't seen Logan and you at all care about having that story completely spoiled for you, watch Logan first.
Yes.
Watch Logan first.
I didn't care, so it was fine. Hugh Jackman's a good actor. He seems like a nice guy. He does a fine job as Wolverine. I'm not as attached to him as the rest of the comics movie viewing public is.
You're slightly older than most of them. They grew up with him.
Sure, yeah, that few years difference, because I was a teenager when the X-Men movies were coming out.
When did the X-Men movie, come out?
Let me do a Google here. X-Men movie film series, fantastic, 2000.
2000.
So I was in my late teens.
I was like 9. Brother.
Yeah, no, and it makes a difference. And I'm not, denying that or trying to argue with it.
11, it would be.
Yeah, I wasn't going to get to the minutia of our ages. He didn't hit me that hard, and I'm not as fond of him, and I didn't watch Logan. So, with all of the connotations of that. I don't have that level of...
And not for nothing, you also don't like Wolverine that much. Like, compared to a lot of people who really like Wolverine, he's their favorite X-Man, he's not. You like him just fine.
Man, I had something I was going to compare that to, and that was a little too being raw and vulnerable on the internet. Wolverine is one of my favorite comic characters of all time. But I don't talk about it because I'm not one of the Wolverine weirdos. And I don't want to be taken as one.
That's fair.
I don't like Wolverine because he's got claws and he'll stab you. I like Wolverine because he's sensitive and vulnerable and he's got damage and he's trying to be a good man even though he's got these urges to not be a good man. I like rewatching the original X-Men cartoon series as we did for... I guess that was the last Marvel property. It's a cartoon, I forget. As we did for X-Men 97, or as I did, rather. That's his journey. He's already there. I thought it was the one that came afterward that you showed me, Evolution or whatever, where he's more Dad Vereen.
He's much more chill there.
He's Dad Vereen the whole time. He always is. The Berserker, that guy, I take or leave him. I want more of that out of Sabretooth because Sabretooth is a fucking bastard. And I want my fucking bastard to be a fucking bastard. Whereas Wolverine he's trying. He's trying to do his best. And yeah, I really like Wolverine. I like how Wolverine was portrayed in this film. I think it was fantastic. The acting was, great. Hugh Jackman is good at what he does.
I mean, he's got a lot of years under his belt.
Sure, yeah, I think he might be familiar with this character.
he's been playing Wolverine for a long time.
But I don't have that. I'm not the one sitting here chanting one more match.
No, I was happy with Logan. I felt Logan was a beautiful, wonderful send-off to one of my favorite portrayals of one of my favorite characters in fiction. I thought the Fox Wolverine, his send-off in Logan was perfect.
I wanted to make a noise that sounded like a Segway too. More spoilers incoming right now. Here you go.
In the first proper scene of this movie, Deadpool specifically goes out of his way to make it clear what kind of movie you're going to be watching. I think the first line is, "I know what you're thinking. How are we going to do this without disrespecting Logan?" We're not. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's incredibly funny. It's genuinely emotionally transgressive because the movie Logan is actually emotionally impactful for me. And seeing the thing that happens in the first scene in Deadpool actually made me go, oh! Like, it had that... It felt like an actually transgressive joke. And that's the one that is, like... Conan O'Brien used to do a bit about how it was laughter, and then groans, and then back to laughter. Yeah. It felt like that. That's what and that was perfect.
I had no such emotional attachment, but I know how internet people are. And my stomach dropped when that started. And then I was like, no, this is the only thing you can do in this movie. Like, that is such a high sign early on that they get it. A reminder, I should say. Because my experience with the previous Deadpool movie was, I don't want to go see this. This is going to be dumb. It's just going to be a bunch of dick jokes and gore. And then I went and I had a really good time. And same thing, you know, there are other things, like I said, the weight of the current MCU state dragging on me, and the timely fashion in which we viewed it. But, like, that was a fantastic way right out the gate to go, we know, fuck you.
You need to remember what kind of movie this is.
This is Deadpool. Did you forget Deadpool?
Here's who he is.
Yeah.
I'm good, perfect.
Yeah.
And the movie continues on that tone.
Yep.
The plot is not important. I want to stress this. The plot of Deadpool and Wolverine is so deeply unimportant to Deadpool and Wolverine.
I would argue that it's bad.
I don't know that that's true. I'm open to that argument, but you're gonna have a tough sell.
Let me use a different word. Schlock parentheses negative.
I would say schlock parentheses complimentary.
Everything that happens that's a twist is so predictable that I didn't expect it. It's so the worst decision to make from a writing standpoint that isn't just lol random.
And the best decision to make from a character standpoint. Like, he's right. Every big surprise that isn't like a return, a character coming back, because there's a lot of returns from previous comic book movie, non-MCU comic book movie, specifically actors. And everything that isn't one of those, he's very like, oh, yeah, that's what they were going to do, huh? And I like that. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes predictable is the right call.
And this is the age we're living in. I've been saying it since the Infinity Saga ended. Shit feels like comic books now. And this 100% feels like a Deadpool annual, a mini-series of Deadpool rendered to film.
And Endgame was the last movie in the MCU. It's just comic books now.
Yeah.
They've just turned comic books into movies now. The vibe is different because the vibe is just comic books now.
And it makes me smile. The last time I felt this way, although I'm much more fond about this film, that is to say the one I'm about to mention, was when we watched Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie is doing such numbers in a time where films are doing poorly.
And this is an R-rated raunchy comedy with like dick and fart jokes and gore in it.
A poorly plotted, on purpose, I would argue.
I will say possibly. It is very possible they did that on purpose. At the very least, they didn't give a shit.
No.
That's not what the movie's about.
Yeah, it wasn't what it was.
The movie is about Deadpool and Wolverine. It's a character study.
Yes.
The antagonist is there in a pro forma sense to have someone for the heroes to beat. It's a character study.
But I say that not because I'm being critical of it, but because I know the kind of people who are critical of this. This is a big third act superhero movie with a not very good plot, with a very shallow,
a shallow villain that is having a great time,
sure,
to be fair.
And shallow stakes in the long run, and every predictable thing that film critics, armchair or otherwise, bitch about in superhero movies, and it's doing these numbers.
I want to take a small time. I want to take a small moment to nitpick some part of that sentence.
Sure.
I don't think it has shallow stakes. I think the movie goes to actually a fair amount of effort to make the emotional stakes very weighty.
Okay. I think that is true until it is invalidated entirely by a little god in a box. A la Dodgeball. I feel like, let me put it another way, I feel like the smug, self-superior critic who is so tired of superhero movies, if this was a different film, would be using that as a cudgel to bludgeon everything else good about this movie with.
Yeah, but they've found something to do that about.
Well, except that they chose not to, and they just loved it for what it is. This Dark Horse, this shouldn't have worked. Level of like on paper, this looks bad, and it's phenomenal. It's getting rave reviews. People love it. Evens those people. I'm sure it still has its critics, but like by and large.
Because they focused on telling a good story.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a good plot, but a good story.
Perhaps it's a backhanded compliment, but like, this is you did this in every terrible conceivable way, and you still pulled it off 5 stars. I don't know what the fuck you're made of, what Mephisto you made a deal with. Good job.
They focused on having fun, satisfying your audience, giving the people what they want to see, and making a good blockbuster comedy.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, this isn't that hard, guys.
And that's something that I understand Ryan Reynolds was kind of saying, whether it was tongue-in-cheek or not, during the presser, on Hot Ones specifically, I am told. I didn't watch it myself. We just made a movie where we cared about the main characters and thought what would be the most important thing for them as we told the story. And the way he said it at the time was like, this was a baffling and strange idea, and to Hollywood it kind of is. Instead of doing whatever makes you the most money.
And in this case, it's going to end up making them the most money anyway.
Well, and it's the same kind of thing. The thing I excuse me, the thing I forget every time is that Ryan Reynolds has James Gunn level, I don't give a shit. I'm going to do this justice. Yes, it's stupid.
Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds was put on this earth to make Deadpool movies happen and make them amazing. He's perfect at the role, he loves the character, and he fucking birthed this into existence with his own sweat and tears. And he deserves this victory lap.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, being realistic, is this my favorite film in a while? No. It was really, really fun, though.
Yeah, I don't know that this movie needs that from me. This movie was fun. Whether or not it's my favorite film ever, it has fun jokes. It has 1 or 2 moments that were heartwarming for me personally. And it has just a couple really surprising moments in it. There is one thing that I genuinely went no fucking way in the theater about.
Happened just before, or just after I left, I think.
It was just after, yes.
Yeah. Didn't actually leave.
No. One of the people who comes back is a person who acts who White Raven famously hates.
Yeah. I will say this is that person's best performance I've seen.
Yeah.
Period. Just because they usually portray someone who is a specific, a la Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller is always angry and unlikable, unless he's not.
And in the Night at the Museum movies, where he's not angry or unlikable, are his best roles.
I forgot about those movies because he's not like you. You reminded me those movies existed right now.
Yeah. So a lot of times, if you don't like an actor, what's happening is you don't like how they've been typecast.
Yes.
And you're right, this particular person who acts is typecast in a very specific way, and when they play against type, they're actually quite talented.
They're typecast for that reason because that's who they are as a person. I am not talking about Emma Corrin. They were fantastic. No notes. More, unfortunately, I guess, is my only note.
No, we were being vague because it's a surprise.
Yeah, it's a surprise. This is probably the spoileriest thing I'm going to say, but I feel it's important to say. And here at the end of the video, if you're still watching, hit us a like. Say I love spoilers in the comments.
Yeah. Hey, we managed to get almost all the way through the episode without any humongous ones, so I'm gonna...
Well, and it's not even that big, but I think the best thing about this movie, because I would relate it to Endgame, in that Endgame is hard for me to rate as a film, because it was the conclusion to a decade of experiences. And in the same way, this is the send-off to the Foxverse.
That's basically emotion. That's somewhat thematically, somewhat literally, and somewhat emotionally what Deadpool and Wolverine is. It's closing the door and saying goodbye to the Fox movies and to the non-MCU superhero movies in general.
But not as maudlin as that sounds. It really was, you know, I know a lot of people in my life who are like, don't give me a funeral, throw me a party. And it absolutely comes across that way. Even the memories I wasn't there for, I'm like, wow, these guys had a good time even making the bad movie where Deadpool didn't have a mouth. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's just... You can tell that they loved those movies, even if they weren't all the best.